My name is Joyce. I'm 60 years old, and the day my youngest daughter, Sarah, a bright, sensitive 12-year-old, looked me in the eye and said, "Mom, can I stop seeing Dad's therapist?" My heart just stopped. I'd just gotten home from grocery shopping, bags in hand, the familiar scent of lemons and fresh bread filling my kitchen. She was standing by the counter, her small hands twisting the hem of her shirt. Her voice was so quiet, so laced with a fear I'd never heard before. "Mom," she whispered, "can I please stop going to see him?" A cold dread washed over me. Every protective instinct I had as a mother, every fiber of my being screamed that something was terribly, horribly wrong. The look on her face, those scared eyes, I knew deep down that something dark had been happening, hidden away in those quiet therapy sessions. This is where the story truly begins. Before we dive in, what time is it where you are? Which country are you watching from? Leave a comment and let me know. And please hit that like button and subscribe to become part of Mama Joyce's Chronicles community for more inspiring stories. Let me take you back to when I thought my life was just normal, when I still believed my ex-husband, Mark, was just a distant but decent co-parent. We'd been divorced for 2 years, and things were fine, or so I thought. Mark worked as a financial advisor. He was always busy, always stressed, but he loved Sarah. He truly did. He insisted on these therapy sessions for Sarah, saying it was to help her adjust to the divorce. He even found the therapist himself, a Dr. Peterson, who came highly recommended. I was working as a freelance graphic designer, juggling deadlines and PTA meetings. It was hectic, but I thought Sarah was getting the support she needed. We lived in a comfortable house in a good neighborhood, good schools. Everything seemed picture perfect on the outside. Mark worked from home a lot, managing his clients from his home office. I figured having him around more meant Sarah was getting more fatherly attention, more stability. We'd been married for 15 years, high school sweethearts, built a life together. Sarah was our only child, our little artist, always drawing, always full of life and imagination. Then, that Thursday afternoon, the day I came back from picking up groceries, something felt off. The house was too quiet. Usually, Sarah would be at the kitchen table, crayons scattered, telling me about her latest masterpiece or some funny thing that happened at school. But that day, nothing. Just silence. I found her in her room, curled up on her bed, staring at the ceiling. Her face was pale, and she had these dark circles under her eyes like she hadn't slept in weeks. My baby looked sick. "Sarah, honey, are you feeling okay?" I asked, sitting on the edge of her bed, feeling her forehead. No fever. She looked at me, and there was a fear in her eyes I'd never seen before. Confusion, pain. "Mom, I'm just tired," she said, but her voice cracked. I went to start putting away the groceries, checking my emails on my phone. That's when she appeared in the doorway. Small, fragile, not my confident, artistic Sarah. "Mom," she whispered, wringing her hands, "can I ask you something?" "Of course, sweetie. Anything." And then she said it, the words that shattered my world. "Mom, can I stop seeing Dad's therapist? Will Sarah ever feel safe again? What did this therapist do?" Stick around for the truth. I dropped the carton of milk I was holding. It hit the floor and burst open, white splashing everywhere, soaking my socks. But I didn't even notice. My heart started pounding so hard I could hear the blood rushing in my ears like a drum. "What do you mean, Sarah? What kind of therapy?" My voice came out sharper, louder than I intended, and I saw her flinch. She took a small step back, looking terrified. The stuff Dad gives me before I go in," she stammered. "He says it's calming juice to help me open up to Dr. Peterson. But Mom, after I drink it, I feel so dizzy. Everything gets fuzzy and slow, and then I wake up on the couch in the office and the hour is over. I don't remember talking. I don't remember anything." Her voice broke, and big tears started rolling down her cheeks. "I don't like how it makes me feel. I feel like I'm floating away. Mommy, please don't make me go back." I felt like someone had punched me right in the stomach. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. But I knew. I absolutely knew in my gut. I couldn't let her see me panic. I couldn't scare her more than she already was. So I swallowed the scream building in my throat, forced my voice to stay steady, and reached out for her hands. They were ice cold. "Sarah, baby, listen to me. Did you bring any of that juice home, or anything else?" She wiped her eyes and nodded slowly. Sometimes he gives me a gummy instead. He says it works faster. I didn't eat the one today. I hid it in my pocket because I hate the taste." My hands were shaking so bad I had to grip the counter to keep from falling over. "Go get it, honey. Bring it to me right now." She ran to her room and came back a minute later with a small, clear Ziploc bag. Inside was a single red gummy bear. No wrapper, no brand name, just a generic-looking candy in a plastic bag. I opened it. It smelled chemically, sweet but with a bitter undertone that burned my nose. This wasn't candy. I raised 3 kids. I know what candy smells like. This was something else. "Sarah, look at me. You did not eat this today." "No, Mom." "Good. You did so good." I grabbed my purse and keys, leaving the spilled milk right there on the floor. "We're going out, right now." "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice trembling. "To see a doctor," I said, my jaw tight. I wasn't going to wait. I wasn't going to ask Mark. I was going to find out exactly what my ex-husband and this doctor were feeding my little girl. I drove straight to the 24-hour emergency clinic downtown, the one where they don't ask too many questions before they help you. I was speeding, running yellow lights, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. What was in that gummy? How long had this been going on? The questions were spinning in my head like a tornado. We burst through the clinic doors, Sarah clutching my hand like a lifeline. The receptionist looked up, bored, but when I slammed that Ziploc bag on the counter, she sat up straight. "I need a toxicology screen," I demanded, my voice shaking with rage. "Someone has been drugging my 12-year-old daughter." "The test results are about to reveal a secret that will tear this family apart. You won't believe what they found in her system." 5 minutes felt like 5 years. The fluorescent lights in the waiting room hummed with this annoying buzz that was driving me crazy. I paced back and forth, wearing a hole in the tile floor, while Sarah sat in a plastic chair, swinging her legs, looking so small and confused. The receptionist had called a nurse immediately after I showed her the bag. Now we were just waiting for someone to tell me I was crazy, that it was just a vitamin, that I was overreacting. But deep down, I knew I wasn't. Finally, a doctor pushed through the double doors, Dr. Miller. He was young, maybe late 30s, but he had this look on his face, stern, tight-jawed, that made my stomach drop all the way to my shoes. He didn't smile, he just motioned for us to follow him into a private room. "Sit down," he said, closing the door firmly behind us. I sat, pulling Sarah onto my lap, even though she was way too big for it. I needed to feel her weight, needed to know she was right there. "We ran a rapid analysis on the substance in the bag," Dr. Miller started, holding a clipboard like a shield, "and we did a quick blood draw on Sarah while the nurse was taking her vitals." He took a deep breath, looking from Sarah to me. "Mrs. Joyce, who gave this to your daughter?" "Her father," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "He said it was to help her relax for therapy." Dr. Miller's eyes hardened. "This is not for relaxing. The gummy contains a high dose of ketamine mixed with a powerful sedative hypnotic. It's a cocktail designed to induce a trance-like state and cause antegrade amnesia, short-term memory loss." The room spun. I had to grab the edge of the exam table to keep from sliding off the chair. Ketamine? Sedatives? You mean she wouldn't remember what happened? Exactly, Dr. Miller said, his voice grave. She would be awake, able to follow basic commands, but completely dissociated from reality, and she wouldn't recall a single thing afterwards. This isn't therapy, Joyce. This is chemical incapacitation. It's illegal, and it's incredibly dangerous for a child her age. I looked at Thera. She was playing with a loose thread on her jeans, totally unaware that her own father had been poisoning her. My ex-husband, the man who taught her how to ride a bike, the man who cried when she was born. He was drugging her to make her a zombie for some stranger in an office. Why? The question screamed in my head. Why would he do this? I'm a mandatory reporter, Dr. Miller continued, snapping me back to reality. I have to contact the police and Child Protective Services immediately. We need to document everything. You cannot let her go back to him. Do you understand? I understand. And for the first time that night, my voice didn't shake. A cold, hard rage was settling in my chest, replacing the fear. He will never touch her again. We drove home in silence, but my mind was a war zone. I told Sarah to go straight to bed, that everything was going to be handled. She hugged me tight, burying her face in my neck. I love you, Mom. I love you too, baby, more than anything. I tucked her in, double-checked the locks on her windows, and then went downstairs. I sat at my kitchen table in the dark, staring at the wall. I needed a plan. I needed help. I picked up my phone to call my brother, who's a retired cop, but then I stopped. A notification popped up on my screen. It was an email from Mark. Subject line, tomorrow's session. Hey, just confirming Sarah is good for tomorrow at 4 p.m. Dr. Peterson says they're making a huge breakthrough. Let me know. A breakthrough? While she's drugged out of her mind. I felt bile rise in my throat. I wanted to drive over there and scream, break his windows, do something violent. But I knew I couldn't. I had to be smart. I had to catch him. Mark thinks he's in control, but he has no idea what's coming for him. And what I found in his home office the next day, it changes everything. You won't believe what he was hiding in plain sight. I didn't reply to that email. Instead, I called my brother, Mike. He spent 30 years on the force, mostly in narcotics. I told him everything, the gummy, the test results, Dr. Miller calling CPS. Mike was quiet for a long time, the kind of silence that scares you more than yelling. Joyce, he finally said, his voice low and dangerous. If the cops show up now, Mark might loiter up and destroy evidence before they get a warrant. We need to know exactly what he's doing in that house. We need to know if there are recordings. My stomach turned over. Recordings. The thought hadn't even crossed my mind, but suddenly it was all I could see. I'm going over there, I said. No, Joyce, it's too dangerous, Mike argued, but I cut him off. He thinks everything is normal. He thinks I'm just the clueless ex-wife. I have a key, Mike. Sarah forgot her math book. I'm going in. I hung up before he could stop me. I drove to Mark's house, my old house, feeling like a burglar in my own life. His car was in the driveway. I texted him. Sarah left her math textbook, coming to grab it real quick. He replied instantly with a thumbs-up emoji. Casual, normal, like he wasn't a monster. When I walked in, the house smelled like coffee and expensive cologne, Mark's signature scent. In the kitchen, he yelled out, just finishing a call. Okay, I shouted back, trying to keep the tremble out of my voice. I took off my shoes so I could move quietly. I didn't go to Sarah's room. I went straight for the spare bedroom downstairs, the one he had converted into his home office for these sessions. The door was slightly ajar. I slipped inside and closed it softly behind me. The room was freezing cold. The blinds were drawn tight, blocking out the afternoon sun. In the center of the room wasn't a desk, but a long, leather reclining chair. It looked more like a dentist's chair than something for therapy. And right across from it, on a tripod, was a high-end digital camera. My breath hitched. The red light on the camera wasn't blinking, thank God, but it was pointed directly at the chair. I rushed over to his desk in the corner. His computer was asleep. I tapped the spacebar. Password protected. Damn it. I tried Sarah's birthday. Incorrect. I tried our anniversary. Incorrect. Joyce? Mark's voice boomed from the hallway. You find it? Panic shot through me. I looked around frantically. I needed something, anything. I tugged on the bottom drawer of the desk. It was locked, but the lock was flimsy. I grabbed a letter opener from the top of the desk and jammed it in, wiggling it until, pop, the latch gave way. Inside, there were no patient files, no medical notes, just a stack of heavy black external hard drives and a small leather-bound ledger. I grabbed the ledger and flipped it open. It wasn't numbers. It was a list. Dates, times, and names. Sarah's name was there over and over again, but next to each entry wasn't a dollar amount. It was a code. Sub LV3, sleep mode, request 44. And then I saw it. The last entry, dated for tomorrow. Next to Sarah's name, he had written, Final preparation. Client payout pending. Client payout? He was selling her. He was selling something involving my daughter. Footsteps stopped right outside the door. The doorknob began to turn. Joyce, what are you doing in there? I'm trapped in the room with the evidence in my hand, and Mark is opening the door. What happens next will leave you breathless, because I didn't just find a ledger, I found a weapon. I shoved that black ledger down the back of my jeans, pulling my oversized cardigan down to cover it just as the door swung open. My hand was still gripping the heavy brass letter opener I'd used to pry the lock, a sharp, pointed blade. That was the weapon. And in that moment, staring at the door, I knew if he tried to stop me, if he tried to keep me in that room, I would use it. I would absolutely use it. Mark stepped in, filling the doorway. He looked annoyed, his eyes scanning the room, then landing on me. Joyce, I asked what you're doing in here. This is a private workspace, client confidentiality. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I forced my hand behind my back, hiding the letter opener, and put on my best flustered ex-wife face. The book, Mark, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Sarah was crying about her math book. I thought maybe she left it in here during her session. He narrowed his eyes, stepping closer. He smelled like coffee and lies. He looked at the desk, then at the slightly jammed drawer. My breath hitched. If he noticed the lock was broken, I was done for. She doesn't bring books in here, he said slowly, his voice dropping an octave. You know the rules. No distractions. He took another step. He was too close now. I tightened my grip on the brass handle behind my back. Well, it's not here, I said, forcing a nervous laugh. I must have missed it in the car. I'm losing my mind in my old age, Mark. Sorry to disturb your work. I tried to squeeze past him. He didn't move at first. For a split second, I thought, this is it. He knows. But then he stepped aside, just an inch. Check the car, Joyce, and next time text me. Don't just wander around my house. I won't, I promised. I walked out of that room, my legs feeling like jelly. I didn't run, though. Every instinct screamed at me to sprint. I walked to the front door, opened it, and stepped out into the cool evening air. As soon as I got into my car and locked the doors, I started shaking, uncontrollable, violent shakes. I drove 2 blocks away, pulled into a gas station parking lot, and ripped the ledger out of my waistband. I turned on the overhead light and flipped to the back page again to the entry for tomorrow. Client payout pending. I looked closer at the column next to it. There was a name. Not a code this time, but a name written in Mark's messy cursive. A name I recognized instantly. A name that made me throw open my car door and vomit right onto the pavement. It wasn't a stranger. It wasn't some anonymous creep on the internet. It was someone who had been in our lives for years. Someone I trusted. Someone who had sat at my dinner table. You think you know who the villains are in your life? You have no idea. When I tell you whose name was in that book, you're going to scream. It said Jerry Henderson. My knees buckled and I had to grab the car door to keep from collapsing right there in the gas station lot. Jerry wasn't just some random name. He was Mark's business partner. He was the man who had sat at our Thanksgiving table for 10 years. He was the man Sarah called Uncle Jerry. He bought her that expensive easel for her 10th birthday. He always told her how mature she was for her age. I remembered every hug, every time he sat next to her on the couch, and my skin didn't just crawl, it burned. I felt like I needed to peel it off. Mark wasn't just drugging our daughter for some stranger. He was preparing her for his best friend. I sped out of that parking lot, tires screeching, and drove straight to my brother Mike's house. I didn't even knock. I just used the spare key and burst into his living room. Mike was watching TV, but when he saw my face, streaked with tears and mascara, pale as a ghost, he was on his feet in a second. "Joyce, what happened? Did he hurt you?" I didn't speak. I just slammed the black ledger onto his coffee table. "Read the last page," I choked out. "Just read it." Mike put on his reading glasses, flipped the book open, and I watched his face change. He went from confused to stony silence. The color drained from his cheeks, his jaw muscles bunched up so hard I thought his teeth might crack. He looked up at me, and there was a darkness in his eyes I hadn't seen since he worked the homicide beat. "Jerry Henderson," Mike said, his voice terrifyingly calm. "The guy who owns the car dealerships?" "Yes," I whispered. He's selling her to him, Mike. Final preparation. That's what it says. Tomorrow." Mike grabbed his phone, but he didn't dial 911. He stared at the book. "Joyce, listen to me very carefully. This book, it's huge. It proves conspiracy. But if we call the cops right now, Mark claims it's just business notes. He claims Sarah refers to a project. He claims payout is a commission. A good lawyer spins this in 5 minutes." "So what?" I screamed. "We just let it happen?" "No," Mike snapped. "We nail them. We nail them so hard they never see the sun again. But to do that, we need the hard drives you saw, the videos. That's the smoking gun. Without those files, it's your word against 2 wealthy men in this town." "I couldn't get into the computer," I sobbed. "I couldn't open the drawer with the drives." Mike looked at me, and I saw a plan forming in his eyes, a dangerous, risky plan. We can't go back in legally without a warrant, and a judge won't give us one fast enough based on a cryptic notebook. We have to get those drives tonight, before the meeting tomorrow. "How?" I asked. "He has alarms. He has cameras." Mike walked to his closet and pulled out a heavy duffel bag. He unzipped it, revealing tools I hadn't seen since we were kids. Lockpicks, a glass cutter, dark clothes. "Mark thinks you're just a frantic mom looking for a math book. He's not expecting a raid. But I can't go in alone, Joyce. I need a lookout, and I need someone who knows the layout inside out." He looked at me. "Are you ready to commit a felony to save your daughter?" "I'd burn the whole world down," I said. We were going back, but we weren't just breaking in. We were walking straight into a trap we didn't see coming, because Mark wasn't the only one watching the house that night. Someone else is in the shadows, and when we step onto that porch, All hell is going to break loose. We parked 3 streets over, hiding the car behind a row of thick hedges. The night was pitch black. No moon, just the distant hum of traffic and the pounding of my own heart in my ears. Mike moved like a ghost, dressed in all black, his duffel bag slung over his shoulder. I tried to match his steps, but my legs felt like lead. Every snapping twig sounded like a gunshot to my nerves. We crept through the neighbor's backyard, stepping over garden hoses and ducking under low-hanging branches until we reached Mark's back porch. The house was dark, silent, a tomb. Mike signaled for me to stay close. He reached into his bag for his lock-picking tools, his hand steady as a rock. But just as he touched the doorknob, a figure stepped out from the shadows of the trellis. I gasped, stumbling back. It wasn't Mark. It wasn't Jerry. It was a woman. She looked wild, her hair matted, wearing a dirty coat that was too big for her, and she was holding a tire iron raised above her head. "You're one of them," she hissed, her voice sounding like broken glass. "You're here to take another one." She swung the iron at me. I froze, paralyzed by fear. But Mike was faster. He caught her wrist in midair, twisting it until she dropped the weapon with a clang that echoed through the quiet yard. He clamped hand over her mouth before she could scream. "We aren't with him," Mike whispered harshly. "We're here to take him down. My niece is a victim. Who are you?" He slowly lowered his hand. The woman stared at us, her eyes wide and haunted, filled with a pain I recognized instantly. "My son," she sobbed quietly. "He went to Dr. Peterson 3 months ago. Now he doesn't speak. He just stares at the wall. I've been watching this house every night, waiting for the man in the suit to come back." The man in the suit. Jerry. Before we could say another word, the porch light above us flickered on. The back door flew open. Mark stood there. He was wearing his silk robe, a glass of scotch in his hand. He looked at me. He looked at Mike. He looked at the woman shivering in the grass. He didn't look scared. He didn't look surprised. He smiled, a cold, dead smile that made my blood freeze. "Jerry said you were persistent, Joyce," he said casually, "but you're trespassing." "We know about the list, Mark," I screamed. "We know about the payout." Mark's smile vanished. "Then I guess I have to accelerate the timeline." He stepped back and slammed the door. We heard the heavy thud of the deadbolt sliding into place. "He's going to wipe the drives," Mike roared. "Joyce, get back." Mike took a step back and launched his boot at the door. Crack! The wood splintered around the lock. He kicked it again. Crack! The door flew open, bouncing off the interior wall. We burst into the kitchen, adrenaline flooding my veins. "Office, now!" Mike yelled. We sprinted down the hallway toward the spare room. But we didn't make it to the office. Mark stepped out of the shadows of the living room. He wasn't holding a computer mouse. He wasn't holding a hard drive. He was holding a snub-nosed revolver, and it was pointed directly at my chest. "I really didn't want to do this, Joyce," he said, cocking the hammer back, "but you never did know when to leave well enough alone." I closed my eyes. I heard the trigger squeeze. What happens next is a miracle you won't see coming. A single split-second decision changes everything. Who takes the bullet? The sound was deafening. Bang! I squeezed my eyes shut, waiting for the burn, waiting for the end. But I didn't feel a bullet tear through me. Instead, I heard a grunt, a heavy thud, and the sound of a body hitting the floor. I opened my eyes. Mike was on the ground, clutching his left shoulder, dark blood already soaking through his black shirt. He had jumped. He had thrown himself right in front of the barrel to save me. My big brother, my hero, was bleeding out on the rug. Mark stood over him, eyes wide, hands shaking, raising the gun for a second shot to finish the job. "You stupid," he started to say, his voice trembling with adrenaline. But he never finished that sentence. From the darkness of the kitchen behind him, a blur of motion. The woman from the yard. She hadn't run away. She had followed us inside. She let out a scream that sounded like a wounded animal and launched herself onto Mark's back. She clawed at his face, biting, scratching, pure motherly rage taking over. She was fighting for her son, for my daughter, for every child he'd hurt. Mark stumbled, flailing, trying to shake her off. The gun clattered across the hardwood floor, sliding under the sofa. "Get him!" the woman screamed, spitting hair out of her mouth. Mike, bleeding and grimacing in pain, didn't hesitate. Adrenaline is a powerful thing. He swept Mark's legs out from under him. They all went down in a heap of limbs. Mike used his good arm, the one that wasn't shot, to pin Mark's face into the carpet, twisting his arm behind his back until I heard a sickening snap. Mark howled in pain. "Joyce, the office!" Mike yelled, gritting his teeth, sweat pouring down his face. "Get the drives! Now!" I ran. I sprinted down that hallway faster than I have ever run in my life. I burst into the office. The computer screen was awake. Mark had started a program before coming out to deal with us. A red bar was moving across the screen. System wipe in progress. 90% complete. He was deleting it. He was erasing Sarah. He was erasing the evidence of every crime he committed. I didn't know how to stop the program. I didn't know computers like that. Panic clawed at my throat. 92%, 95%. I did the only thing I could think of. I grabbed the heavy tower of the computer, ripped the cords out of the wall with a spark, and lifted it high above my head. I smashed it onto the floor with a primal scream. Then I grabbed the external hard drives sitting on the desk, the ones that weren't connected, and shoved them into my shirt. Sirens. Finally! I heard the wail of sirens getting louder and louder outside. Blue and red lights flashed against the drawn blinds. I ran back to the living room. Mark was subdued, nose bloody, handcuffed with Mike's zip ties. The woman was sitting in the corner, sobbing into her hands. Mike was pale, leaning against the wall, holding a towel to his shoulder, but he gave me a weak thumbs up. We had him. We had the evidence. It was over. But as the police rushed in, guns drawn, shouting commands, Mark looked up at me from the floor. He didn't look defeated. He didn't look scared. He looked amused. "It's too late, Joyce," he spat, blood on his teeth. "You're celebrating too early. Jerry picked up Sarah an hour ago for a special late-night session. She's not in her bed." My blood ran cold. I dropped to my knees. I thought the nightmare was ending, but the real horror has just begun. Where is my daughter? And can we get to her before Jerry does the unthinkable? You need to hear what happens next. I didn't wait for the police to give me permission. I didn't wait for them to process Mark. I turned and sprinted out the front door, my lungs burning, my mind screaming one name, Jerry. I scrambled up the stairs to Sarah's room, praying Mark was lying, praying it was just a sick mind game. I kicked her door open so hard the handle punched a hole in the drywall. Empty. The bed was perfectly made, but the window was wide open, the screen slashed from the outside. My baby was gone. This is the moment where the story truly begins. Before we dive in, what time is it where you are? Which country are you watching from? Leave a comment and let me know. And please hit that like button and subscribe to become part of Mama Joyce's Chronicles community for more inspiring stories. "Officer!" I screamed, running back down the stairs, practically throwing myself at the lead detective. "He took her to the Henderson estate. Jerry Henderson has my daughter right now. You have to go. You have to kill the sirens, or he'll hurt her." The detective looked at Mike, who was being loaded onto a stretcher, but nodded frantically. "Go," Mike wheezed. "Go get her." The detective grabbed my arm. "Get in the car." I sat in the back of that cruiser, clutching the door handle, watching the world blur by at 90 miles an hour. I wasn't crying anymore. I was past crying. I was in a place of cold, hard focus. I knew Jerry's house. It was a secluded mansion on the edge of town, surrounded by tall iron gates and woods. A fortress. A prison. "Dispatch, suspect vehicle spotted in the driveway of 44 Oak Ridge. Lights are on in the east wing." We skidded through the open gates. Jerry had left them open in his arrogance and screeched to a halt in front of the massive oak doors. The detective kicked his door open, weapon drawn. "Stay here," he ordered me. Like hell I was staying there. I followed the team of 4 officers up the steps. They used a battering ram on the front door. Boom! Boom! Crash! We swarmed into the grand foyer. It was silent. Classical music was playing softly from somewhere deep in the house. It was sickening. "Police! Show yourself!" We followed the music. It led us to the library at the back of the house. The officers kicked those double doors open, and the sight in front of me made my knees give out. Sarah was lying on a leather sofa. She was dressed in a white lace dress that I had never bought for her. Her hair was brushed perfectly. She looked like a doll, a sleeping, lifeless doll. And standing over her, adjusting a camera on a tripod, was Jerry. He turned around, holding a glass of wine, looking annoyed that his evening was interrupted. "Gentlemen," he said smoothly, "do you have a warrant for this intrusion?" "Get on the ground, now!" The officers didn't hesitate. They tackled him. The wine glass shattered. Jerry screamed, "Do you know who I am? I'll have your badges. This is a misunderstanding." I didn't care about him. I scrambled over the broken glass to the sofa. I grabbed Sarah's face. Her skin was ice cold. Her breathing was so shallow I could barely feel it. Her eyes were rolled back in her head. "Sarah! Baby! Wake up! Mommy's here!" I shook her, but she was limp. Dead weight. "Paramedics!" I screamed, my voice tearing my throat apart. "She's not waking up! He gave her too much! She's not waking up!" Jerry was being dragged out in handcuffs, still yelling about his lawyers, while I held my daughter's unconscious body, rocking back and forth, begging God not to take her, begging for her eyelids to flutter. Suddenly, she gasped, a terrible choking sound. Her body arched off the sofa, seizing violently. Foam started bubbling at the corners of her mouth. "She's crashing!" a medic yelled, rushing in with a bag. "We need to intubate! Move, Mom, move!" They pulled me away. I watched them cut off that white dress. I watched them stick tubes down her throat. I watched the heart monitor flatline. You think the rescue is the happy ending? It's not. The battle for Sarah's life is just starting, and what the doctors tell me in the ICU will change our lives forever. And Jerry? He has one final dirty trick up his sleeve to avoid prison. You won't believe what happens in the final part. "Clear!" the paramedic screamed. Thump. My daughter's body jerked on the table. The heart monitor held that long, piercing beep that haunts you in nightmares. I was screaming, being held back by a police officer, watching them shock my 12-year-old's chest. "Come on, Sarah! Fight, baby, fight!" I wailed. For 30 seconds, my world was black. Then, beep. Then another. Beep. A rhythm. A weak, uneven rhythm, but a rhythm. This is where the story truly begins. Before we dive in, what time is it where you are? Which country are you watching from? Leave a comment and let me know. And please, hit that like button and subscribe to become part of Mama Joyce's Chronicles community for more inspiring stories. They rushed her to the ICU. She was in a chemically induced coma for 4 days. 4 days of me sitting in a plastic chair, holding her hand, watching machines breathe for her. Mike was in the room next door, recovering from surgery to remove the bullet from his shoulder. He made it, tough old bird that he is. When Sarah finally opened her eyes on the 5th day, she looked at me and whispered, "Mom, did I miss school?" She didn't remember the ambulance. She didn't remember the library. The drugs had wiped her memory of the trauma, which the doctors said was a small mercy. But the physical recovery was brutal. While she was healing, the legal war began. And here was Jerry's dirty trick. His lawyers, sharks in expensive suits, tried to claim entrapment. They tried to claim that Mark was the mastermind and Jerry was just an investor who didn't know the girls were underage. They had connections. The judge was actually considering granting Jerry bail. Bail for a monster caught standing over a comatose child. But they forgot one thing: the hard drives. I walked into the district attorney's office with the bag I had saved from the smashing computer. Those drives didn't just have videos of Sarah, they had files going back 5 years. They had emails, financial records, and chat logs between Mark and Jerry detailing everything. It wasn't just Sarah. There were dozens of kids. It was a ring. And that woman from the yard, her son was on those drives too. When the DA played a snippet of the audio in the preliminary hearing, Jerry's lawyer actually turned pale and sat down. The dirty trick fell apart instantly. The evidence was undeniable. It was the nail in the coffin. Mark pleaded guilty to avoid the death penalty. He got 45 years in federal prison. He'll die in a concrete box. Jerry refused to plead. He went to trial. It took the jury less than an hour to return a guilty verdict on all counts. The judge gave him 3 consecutive life sentences. No parole, ever. When the gavel came down, I didn't cheer. I just exhaled, a breath I'd been holding for months. It's been 2 years since that night. Sarah is 14 now. We moved 3 towns over to a quiet house with a big garden. We got a dog, a massive Rottweiler named Tank, who sleeps by Sarah's door every single night. If anyone ever tries to hurt her again, they'll have to get through 120 pounds of muscle and teeth first. Sarah is back in therapy, real therapy this time, with a kind woman named Dr. Evans who specializes in trauma. Sarah started painting again, too. At first, her pictures were dark, black storms, gray cages. But lately, she's been using yellow. She's been painting sunrises. We are survivors. We are damaged, sure. I still jump when the phone rings late at night. Sarah still has nightmares sometimes. But we are free. We are safe. And those monsters can never, ever hurt us again. I learned something important. A mother's intuition is the most powerful force on earth. If your gut tells you something is wrong, listen to it, scream, break down doors, do whatever it takes. You might just save a life. Did this story resonate with you? Have you ever had a gut feeling that saved you? Please know you're not alone. If this story moved you, please support this channel with a super thanks so I can continue bringing important stories like this to light. Your support means everything to survivors like us. Drop your city in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. There are 2 more powerful stories on the screen right now that you need to hear. Thank you for listening, and stay safe out there.